Hey guys, welcome to Young in Faith. I'm Courtney.
I'm Chloe.
And so today we just want to talk about boundaries because it's been something that's been on both of our hearts. I've just got back from college and just finished.
I'm going into college. I just finished my senior year of high school.
Yeah, so we are just in that stage of life to really just understand what it looks like to have boundaries with
Dating.
and dating. So, something that I've learned recently is just what it looks like even to have communication with guys, whether they're your friend or you're into them or anything. It's really important to have communication to just allow them to understand where you're at with that friendship, and so that there's no confusion, so they can understand that it's what it is, there's no complication, that they know exactly what's going on in your mind, and then they can tell you what's going on in their mind so that you can save any hurt, heartache, any of that.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Lack of communication is something that is very important to nail down, because the damage lack of communication can do is it's very harmful on whether that's a friendship or a relationship or just in general.
Yeah. And what does that look like for you to just figure out your own intentions?
I think it's important to always have pure intentions when you're going into anything, whether that is dating or friendships. You never want to go into something with the wrong intentions and intentions for yourself and your pride. And I think it's very important to always think about the other person when dealing with your intentions. And
yeah. I agree. I think it's a continual heart check. Where's your heart at? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you hanging out with said person? And where are you?
Where's your head at?
Yeah. Well, and where's your heart at too?
Yeah.
And it's just because if your heart's in the wrong place, then you're not only going to lead yourself to hurt, but that person as well. And the Bible talks about guarding our heart above all else, because everything flows from it. And so it's so important to make sure that we're not only protecting our own heart, but also making sure that we're not leading anyone else into confusion or heartache.
It's important to protect their heart as much as yours.
Yeah.
Love others as you love yourself. So,
yep.
I
think some important boundaries with guy-girl friendships is just to not get too emotionally or spiritually invested, because
even physically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because when you do, you're crossing a boundary that can lead to you're being led by feelings rather than being led by Christ in that friendship, and you're allowing your emotions to take over, and we're not called to be led by emotions, because that's going to lead us to confusion and going down the wrong path, and it can make us make decisions in the moment that we're going to regret in the future. And so I think it's really important to just keep those boundaries set, and one of my new ways of doing that is not hanging out in one-on-one settings. Obviously in public is different, and it's okay to have a one-on-one conversation with a guy, but if you are continually hanging out, whether it's at night, whether it's during the day, or just in the car even, with a guy, you're going to continually grow an emotional attachment to them, and it's going to lead to your emotions making you feel like you are in love with them, even when you may not be as interested as you think.
Yeah.
So
I think emotions can definitely cloud how you actually truly feel when you're put in those positions and in those situations. But, at the end of the day, it's where are your intentions with when you're hanging out one-on-one with this person? Are your intentions for, purely just let's just be friends, go out, do whatever, or is there an underlying thought process behind that you're not really being open with? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For one time, this guy asked to go to the movies with me, and going to the movies, you're all right, you already know where this is going.
Yeah.
But I told him, I was listen, you're not going to try anything because we're just going as friends. Mm-hmm. And he was okay. And so we went to the movies, nothing happened. It was strictly friends. And like, again, comes in with like your communication and where your intentions and where you stand and knowing where both of you stand in a situation like that. You know what I mean?
That's really good. And I just feel like continually checking, like, to make sure that when you are hanging out with them, like, has it become a thing where now when you hang out, it's, oh, like, I'm so excited to hang out with them. But to really just continually check and make sure that your heart is still being protected. Because it can get overstepped at a point. And it's okay to have to take a step back from that. And I don't think people understand that, because people think that once they've gotten a certain point that they can't, like, hurt someone else's feelings by, like, setting a boundary. But it's okay to take a step back and set a new boundary. Like, for example, in college, I go to a secular school, and I live in a dorm with guys and girls. And, like, my neighbors are both guys. And so it's something very different that I'm not used to. And thankfully, I met my best friend, who's a Christian, just a few doors down the hall. But we know a lot of people that aren't Christians. And so I got to the point where I care about them and I want to be light. But then it turned into, okay, now I just want to hang out with them because they're fun to be around. Or I'm bored, so let me just go, like, turn to them. And it came to the point where I started to become emotionally attached to one of them. Not because necessarily of who they were, but just because of letting my emotions lead. And so I was open with it, and I think that that's the best thing to do. I told him, I was like, my emotions are leading me, and, like, I'm telling you this not because I want something to come out of it, but simply because, like, I want to be able to, like, be free from this. And so I was open with him and told him how I was feeling, and I told him I was going to set a boundary. And so he wasn't confused on thinking, like, am I, like, mad at him or something. Like, there's no confusion on his end. He understands why I'm taking a step back, and he respects that. And, like, even now, like, we're still great friends, and I feel, like, freed from that, and there's no, like, emotional, like, pull there. And so I think it's okay to set a boundary after being so close to someone. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of people understand that.
That's great. One thing my dad always tells me is feelings follow behavior. Mm-hmm. So the way you behave and the way that you go about things with certain people, your feelings are going to follow that. So it's very important to, like, watch your behavior in things like that, because, like, if you're going and you're getting all, like, buddy with, like, a certain person, and, like, next thing you know, your feelings are following those behaviors, and now you kind of have built this emotional connection to them. But if you are, like, aware of your boundaries and aware of, like, the situation, and your behavior is following that, your feelings are going to follow that too, and you're going to be aware of, like, the space that you need as a person, and when to have enough space with other people as well. Mm-hmm. You know,
I think another thing that goes with like, the behavior thing is make sure that your behavior is, like, congruent across, like, all of your guy friends, or at least to an extent.
Yeah.
And if it's not, to let them know, because it can confuse them, because they're like, okay, like, why is she treating me this way, but she's treating everyone else this way? And so it's, like, allowing them to know that the reason that you're treating them a little bit differently is because you feel like we're closer and I can trust you with, like, a little bit more of me while still being emotionally protected. Mm-hmm. And allowing them to understand that will protect them as well. And so it's okay to have different boundaries with different people. Mm-hmm.
It depends on, like, the closeness.
Yeah. And I also think it depends on them. Like, where are they at with the Lord? Where are they at with the issue of putting Christ first while still desiring a relationship? Because
respecting. Yeah. Respect is, like, a big thing.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
You have to, like, respect what you're doing, and they have to respect you as a person and where your boundaries are. And, like, you know, if somebody, like, crosses those boundaries, like, it's important to communicate that and like, be cautious of that, because sometimes that, like, gets a little in the gray area sometimes, you know?
Yeah, because it's like when they're not respecting you, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do next? Like, there's only so much you can do, and you got to take a step back, and then it's like, they're mad at you for taking a step back, but so it's just a whole
But like at the end of the day, like you're only responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
Like you can't control other people, and you can't control other people's feelings, and that's something that I really had to like learn like through my dating experience is like you can't control what people do and how people think.
Yeah.
Just because I've been in relationships where like I've been controlled and I was the controller, and like you learn a lot through that, and it kind of like it really makes you aware of like, all right, like how am I respecting this person? How is this person respecting me?
Yeah.
And so on, you know?
Yeah. Transitioning to dating, I've never been in a relationship, but how do you feel like dating has like changed for you since like BC, like before Christ, and like now?
So I've been in 2 relationships. I've had a long-term relationship and I've had a short-term relationship. And both of those very different, but you know, a lot can happen within a certain time frame. And you know, with my long-term relationship, I think it was more of like we tried so hard to like bring God in it, but you know, flesh always kind of beat that. And there's been times where like we'd get so close and then we'd like get pulled back, and it was just this constant like toxic like pulling, and like there was a lot of like control issues that were like surrounded in that relationship, and it was like really difficult. It was a very harsh and tough relationship to be in. And then like, you know, even in that relationship, like things have bled over into, you know, my short-term relationship. And like the things that would happen in this relationship like affected this relationship, and the way that I acted and the way that I behaved, and I was trying so hard and like I was being so self-conscious of like how I needed to be and how to not be the person I was in this relationship. And you know, when it came to like my short-term relationship, we were very unequally yoked. And like that's something that is so important, and like I can't stress it enough, like when being in a relationship is like having like that equal like yoke there, because like iron sharpens iron, and you can't sharpen iron with wood.
Yeah.
And you know, he was just very much of the world. Like he wanted to go have the high school experience, he wanted to party, he wanted to drink, and that was just not me. Like that's not who I was, and like that's something that I just did not want to like be a part of, and I knew that. But part of me still wanted to hold on to him, you know, just naturally being emotionally attached to that person. But eventually, like in the long run, it was good for me to get out of that relationship and not, you know, play spiritual catch up with that person, because you can't play spiritual catch up when being in an unequally yoked relationship.
Yeah.
And like it comes to the point where it's like you are who you surround yourself with. Like in the Bible, it talks like bad company corrupts good character. And you know, him being involved with like this bad company, like his bad company could corrupt my good character, and I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So I kind of like pushed that off, and like I haven't dated in like over a year and a half, I think. And you know, I've had like a couple of like talking stages, but like nothing ever like serious enough to like get into a relationship again, because I've just like been trying to really like focus on myself and like where I stand with God, and like always putting him first when it comes to like being in any type of relationship, whether that's friendship or romantic. Because, you know, when I was like dating people, I sometimes, you know, put them on a pedestal over God.
Yeah.
And that's something that can get very bad really fast if you start to put your significant other over God and put them on the pedestal over Jesus. And that's something that's very important when being in any type of relationship.
Yeah, and we can like unintentionally do that too. You don't even realize like you're waking up and they're the first person you're texting, but like, have you spent time with Jesus yet?
Yeah.
You know, like things like that. And I like to think because I've obviously been in like talking stages, whatever you want to call it, and it's like so important to not wake up and have them be the first person on your mind. Like
Right.
Jesus should always be the first thing that like we think about and the thing we think about most. And if there's something that we think about more than God, then that might be an idol in our life. And it doesn't have to be a person. It can be a thing. It can be a desire. It can be a sin. It can be anything. And so I think it's just so important to bless
Sorry.
you.
Sorry.
It's so important to just make sure that the Lord is coming first always. And then going back to the unequally yoked thing, if one person is like lower than the other, then they're going to either drag the other person down,
Yes.
or the other person is going to be so focused on trying to bring them up that they're not going to be experiencing growth. And so,
And you're playing that spiritual catch up.
Yeah.
And it's just constant. And
Yeah.
it is the most exhausting thing that you will ever do, being in an unequally yoked relationship.
And like, it's not in a dating relationship, it's not your job to either be
Right.
led by the man or to be the man leading. That is something that is for marriage. And yes, that
Yeah.
can be like, not foreshadowed, but like practiced a little bit in dating. But hot take, dating and marriage should look more different than dating and friendship, because dating is a man-made concept. It is not in the Bible, and so when we try to make dating look so much like marriage, it kind of is defeating the whole point of marriage and the covenant that marriage is. And I feel like in our day and age, some people will be dating for like 10 plus years and they don't feel the need to get married because they're having sex before marriage, they're moving in together, they're having kids, they're buying a house, they're getting pets. Like, they're doing all the things that you should be doing in marriage, but they're just doing it in dating because they don't understand the whole like importance of what marriage really is. Our society has turned marriage just into like a paper, and it's so much more than that. It's a covenant with us and God and with our significant other, and it's reflecting how Christ loves the church. And so when we take that out of context, like, the whole point of marriage is not for us, but for Christ and to be able to represent that. And so taking that out of context is just diminishing this beautiful thing that the Lord has given us.
Yeah, that was really good.
Thanks.
That was really good. Good job. Good job.
Holy Spirit, period.
What does like your standards look like when being in a relationship?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things is to see Christ through them and to see that they are able to be a leader, because that's what the Bible talks about in 1 Timothy 3, in Titus. Sure, there's lots of other places. It talks about what a leader of the church should be. And it's so important that you are able to see that they are going to be able to lead a family well. And if they're not secure in who they are in Christ, they're not going to be able to love you properly. And so it's so important to just look for leadership, secure in who they are, and like there's plenty of things, but I think another really big thing for me is just like I like to ask myself the question of like how do like non-believers view them? Because if non-believers are like they're so rude, or like they just aren't like kind, or they don't really care, that is a big reflection of like what their character truly is like outside of the church. Because you can put on a facade in front of the church and be like, oh, like, I'm going to serve in this way and I'm going to do this and I'm going to preach on this. But when it comes to being outside the church and just in daily life, are they still living out like a life for Christ? And just being able to observe, like, how are they acting when no one's watching? You know, because so often I think men can try to impress a woman and be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, so that she can see me and so that I can be like put on a pedestal. And so then she's like, oh, I want to be with you. Like, but in reality, we need to make sure that we are putting like all of that still out there, even when we're following the Lord and not having anyone watch us. Because the second that we do it for man, like, it's not for Christ. And we can't make it for both. And so just continually being able to see, like, are they doing it for the right reasons? And if they are, then maybe there's someone we can give a chance, you know? And I think it's really important that they have confidence in who they are enough to ask you or like tell you that they admire you. Because it's like so petty when it's like, oh, do you like this person? Because like they've been talking about you. And it's like, if they don't even have enough courage to come up to you and tell you that they admire who you are, then
Yeah.
they're...
And I think, like, it's so, like, no, like, okay, first, like, there's a big difference between confidence and pride.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, sometimes I think guys get a little too prideful in the way that they behave and try to, like, put on this, like, facade for a girl. And then, like, confidence, like, that's something, like, a girl will admire. Like,
Yeah.
if you have
In Christ.
confidence, yes. If you had confidence, like, it's something that's just, it'll draw more attraction to you, I think. Or at least for me. Like,
Yeah.
like, when this guy, like, came up to me in church and he was like, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I just think you're so beautiful. And I was like, thank you. Like, I feel important. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like seen,
Yeah.
you know? But, you know, the cockiness, like, can really kind of get in the way of that. And it can honestly, like, it can kind of, what's the word? It can kind of hinder the way you're seen as a whole, I think. Because, like, when you have that, like, prideful spirit or, like, that cockiness on you, like, it's something that you're kind of just like, kind of want to take my, put some more boundaries there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
I was gonna say, when you're talking about like the being called beautiful thing, like I love that too, and I think even more than that, like on top of that, like being recognized for like who I am on the inside,
Yes.
you know, and like them realizing like, hey, she loves to serve, or hey, this, that, whatever, like whatever they see, because like those are things from Christ,
Yeah.
and like the Bible talks about like beauty's gonna fade, charm is deceptive, like that's gonna be gone. Someone told me the other day, they were like, you're not gonna look better than you do on your wedding day, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm never gonna look better than that, you know? So it's like, if that's the case, like if they're so attracted to you because of what you look like, they're gonna be disappointed in a few years. Like, you're gonna have kids, we're gonna be stressed out, we're gonna get gray hair, like, it's gonna be...
Wrinkles.
Yeah.
Wrinkles.
Wrinkles, I'm scared of wrinkles.
I'm scared of wrinkles too.
But-
Sunscreen, wear your sunscreen.
But it's so important for them to recognize, like, who you are on the inside, because that's so much more valuable. That's something that you're gonna pass it down to your kids that, like, you're gonna do to raise them. And so if, like, they're not recognizing you for those things, then are you gonna wanna be with somebody that's not appreciative of those things? And if they're not recognizing them, then it's kind of brings you back to, okay, what are their intentions? Do they understand what marriage truly is? So it's kind of just like a whole full circle moment of, do they understand? And are they fully like on the same page as you about what marriage should look like, boundaries, and
Yeah.
all of it?
Because I think it's so much better receiving a compliment, being like, hey, like, I see Jesus in you.
Yeah. Oh my
And,
gosh.
like,
That makes me cry every time. Yeah.
I've had people come up to me, like, in church, like, after worship, and they're like, I wish I was where you were at a young age, like, being obedient to Jesus and following Jesus, because, like, I was not doing the things I was doing at your age. And my heart kind of, like, breaks for that, because, like, I think a lot of people get kind of caught up in the fact that it's like, oh, like, I'll get to Jesus when I like have the time for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not something that's always like on the forefront of their mind. And I think it, you know, you can even full circle that back to what are you putting on your pedestal?
Yeah.
You know?
And they don't understand, like, tomorrow's not promised. Like, people will so often say, like, I'll follow Jesus after college, like, after I've had my fun years. Dude, you might
Let
be
me have
dead
my experience
tomorrow.
and my
Like,
fun time first, and then when it's time to settle down and get serious, then I'll follow Jesus.
Yeah.
It
And-
doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't, because also it just shows that, like, your heart's not in it. And so the second you get out of college, you're just going to keep living in what you're living in. And I'm so passionate about, like, how you're saying how someone came up to you. Like, I'm so passionate about the fact that young adults have the most impact on the world, period. Because other young adults are going to listen to us, kids listen to us, parents listen to us, and, like, old people even, like, admire us. And I don't think any other age group has, like, that impact on all the other age groups.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important that we take our faith so seriously now and just continue to like, be that light, be the love of Christ in the dark and broken world, because people so often recognize it and they see it, and then it makes them want to know Christ more. And so right now we don't really have that many, like, responsibilities. So
Yeah.
time is now.
Yeah, time is now. And that, like even in, like, dating experience, I think people are just like, oh, like, I'll date this person, and then I'll date this person, and then, like, I'll go through, like, the motions of dating when, like...
Just for fun.
Right.
When it comes to, like, the trial and error thing, at least for me, like, I kind of got caught up in the fact, like, that dating's, like, not okay. But then I'm like, no, dating is okay. It's okay to go on a date. It's okay to say yes to a date.
Yes. Okay, wait, can I say something?
Yes,
okay.
say something, girl.
So, when it comes to dating to marry, I feel like that term is so thrown around, where it's like, once you're dating the person, now you're obligated to marry them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of, like, young teens, like, that's the way that they think. But that is, like, not the case. Like, when you use the term date to marry, I personally see it as, like, okay, this person, I'm interested in him. I'm gonna date him. I'm gonna see, like, if this person really is a fit for me, and, like, do I see myself long term with this person? That's what I feel as what dating to marry is. But I feel like a lot of people, like, I've even just having, like, experiences with, like, my friends and, like, them talking about, like, oh, like, I'm dating to marry, or, like, no, I'm dating for experience, whatever it is. Like, when they say date to marry, it's like you feel like you're locked in to that person for life once you have, like, shown interest in them. And I think that can be something that's, like, dangerous, because, like, you put yourself in that mindset where, like, all right, now I can't get out, and now I'm stuck, and I'm gonna kind of, like, go for it as much as I can until I'm burnt out and then can't do it anymore. You know what I mean?
I completely agree with that. I think, like, it just comes down to, like, where are your intentions? Like, are you in this relationship because you're bored and like, you're going to graduate, whether it's high school or college, and you're going to break up with them? Or are you in it because you're looking for a husband, Yeah. And I also, what I associate with that term is, like, are you ready to get married? Like, if you're not anywhere emotionally, spiritually ready to get married, then why are you going to get into a relationship? Because your problems aren't going to get fixed in that relationship. They're only going to be magnified. Because you are trying to deal with someone else now. And so for me, like, there's a difference between being scared of getting in a relationship and, like, actually being ready for it. Like, if you don't feel you're ready, then that's okay to take a step back. But if you're just scared because of commitment or whatever, like, the Lord's going to help you work through that and bless you in a relationship when it's time. And I just think it's so important to continue to put Christ first, and the rest will follow. Yeah.
Having God at the center of your relationship is so, so important. Like, keeping him, like, on top of the pedestal. And, even in that, still, have those boundaries and be careful of, like, what you're doing in a relationship that's spiritually bonding you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think something that can seem so, like,
innocent,
good and pure is reading the Bible together. But when you do take that time to sit down and read the Bible together, you're creating a spiritual bond. And you're going through the motions of, like, something that should be saved for marriage. I think it's totally fine to have your separate devotionals and talk about it, or, hey, I'm confused on, like, what this verse is talking about, or I'm struggling with this, like, with this verse, like, what does it mean? I don't understand it. It's kind of making me mad. Like, it's totally okay to be there for advice and for one another, but I think when it really comes down to sitting alone, reading the Bible together, it's kind of a gray area, because it leads to spiritual attachment, emotional attachment, and just something that should be saved for marriage. Like, that's something that is meant to bond you in a marriage relationship. And I think something that you can do to, like, fix that is just invite other people in. It's okay to do a co-ed Bible study. Just don't get too emotionally invested. They don't need to know everything that you would tell the girls or everything you would tell the boys. Like, it can still be a time where you're having edifying conversations and being in fellowship and understanding what the Lord is speaking to you while still honoring and respecting those boundaries.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think, it's kind of controversial, because I don't think the Bible necessarily, like, says the word soul ties in it. But, like, there's scripture that kind of, like, backs that up just a little
Yeah.
bit. And I think soul ties can happen more than just in the covenant of sex.
Yeah, and I didn't like learn that until literally a few weeks ago. But you can be spiritually bonded to your parents, your friends, like an ex-boyfriend, anyone. It really just comes with like a bondage of like emotions and like spiritual like just connection. And so like the Lord can free you from all of those. And he can continually do it, whether you are a new believer or you've been following Christ for years, like he's going to free you from all of that. But it's just so important to create boundaries to prevent that as best as we possibly can, because the more people that we are spiritually bonded to, the more that takes away from like our husband one day, you know? The more that we give ourselves to other people, the less we have to give to them. And the whole point of marriage is to like glorify God better together. And so if you can't do that, then like, what are you really doing in your marriage?
What's your actual intentions?
But yeah, I think that's the end of our...
That's a wrap.
Woohoo!
Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in.
See you next week on
See
Young
you
and
next
Faith.
time on Young and Faith.
Woo!